This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Jamie Glazov Moment. Tonight, Iran's martyrs and the left's malicious silence. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you know, but perhaps many of you might not know and might not be completely your fault, the media is completely abandoned and forgotten, pushed into invisibility as it always does, the protests that are going on under totalitarianism in the world. And in this case, what I want to focus on this evening is the nation of Iran. MSNBC, CNN, you're not going to find Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon or Anderson Cooper talking about this. There are protests going on 24/7. Young and old, men and women, boys and girls, risking their lives, giving their lives, sacrificing their lives for freedom. There are brave women, even young girls, taking off their hijab, and they're being punished severely for doing it. Many of them just disappear, and then the secret police, those awful, monstrous thugs of the secret police of the Islamic Republic are phoning the parents, phoning the families, just telling them this is where you can find the body. This is going on 24/7 in Tehran and other major cities in Iran. So many brave people, thousands, tens of thousands of brave people fighting for freedom in that nation. Where is this in our establishment media? I mean, every time I put it on CNN, MSNBC, these other channels, they're just going on and on complaining about Trump and something about Russian collusion. I just wanted to talk about this evening. You know, this is something that I've dedicated my life to since I was a kid, because this leftist media did the same thing in terms of, you know, my country, the former Soviet Union, and people suffering under communism. But, you know, again, I just want to ask, where is the media? But especially the feminist movement. Where are you? There are women in Iran who are fighting for the right not to be forced to wear a hijab. And as always, as we know how Islam punishes women who try to be free in this way, in terms of honor killings and acid attacks and so much brutal punishment. Where's the feminist movement? I also want to call out the lies. Because when CNN and MSNBC and New York Times and Time Magazine, you know, just watch the media. When they do mention Iran, lies. Because when you listen carefully, they constantly refer, especially recently, the New York Times and CNN, oh, you know, the Iranian people are out in the streets, you know, they're protesting the economic stagnation, oh, the economy. You know, this is very interesting. Why do you keep mentioning the economy? Because when a woman takes off her hijab and then she's tortured and raped in an Iranian prison, and many of them go missing, I don't think that has very much to do with economic stagnation. The media is lying, and it's camouflaging and throwing dust in the eyes of people. This is about a revolution against Islamic law. This is a revolution against the barbaric Islamic constitution by which that country is ruled. Okay? That's what's going on. And the media, controlled by the left, is of course uncomfortable with this, because the left is always on the side of the adversary culture and religion, and the totalitarian adversarial culture and religion. The left is on the side of that monstrous regime in Iran. The left is on the side of the monsters that are torturing the Iranian people, boys and girls, men and women, young and old. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you saw an Iranian exile or dissident on CNN or MSNBC? The producer of this show, Annie Cyrus, who was a former child bride who suffered under Sharia. She escaped Iran. She's fighting for freedom now. She's an expert on what's going on in her homeland. She's an expert on what's going on. I talk to her daily. She is fighting 24/7 for the freedom in Iran, for people's right to be free, for women's rights. When was the last time Don Lemon or Rachel Maddow or Anderson Cooper invited her, or Wolf Blitzer? There's thousands of arrests, thousands of people being tortured in Iran. I couldn't help wondering, the Me Too movement in the United States and, other areas of the West, maybe, I'm not trying to minimize certain things that have happened. I'm against all kinds of abuse. I care about all kinds of victims, okay? So, anybody that was a victim of maybe a Weinstein or somebody like that, yeah, let's talk about that. Let that come out. Let the proper people be punished. But I'm just wondering, Me Too movement, you see it, a hashtag, Me Too movement, Me Too movement. I'm just wondering, in some of these cases of the Me Too movement, how do they compare with Iranian boys and girls disappearing off the streets and being found mutilated in the streets, dead? How does this compare? How do we compare the selective indignation and selective media coverage? Well, we know the answer to that. So look, what I wanted to do today is, I'm very well acquainted with what's going on because of what happened to my family in the Soviet Union, in terms of what my dad and my mom fought for, in terms of the people who we lost to the KGB and to the Gulag, in terms of the millions of people that the Soviet regime murdered and starved to death, in terms of the 100 million people that the socialist idea exterminated in the 20th century. I know about it. I've dedicated my life to trying to bring a memory and respect to the victims of that totalitarianism. And I've tried to fight the idea that sparked that and inspired it and sanctioned it. But I know very well how the left tried to suffocate my parents, how the left, just like the Soviet regime, tried to erase my father and my mother and other dissidents from the history, from life, to try to pretend they never existed. And that's what's going on today in terms of what's going on in Iran and the freedom fighters that are fighting there for freedom. You don't hear about them because our establishment media is controlled by the left, and it is left, and it wants to erase their reality. It wants to push the victims into invisibility. It wants to erase their memory. It wants to pretend that they never existed. But the Glazov Gang will not allow that. And we will fight for their memory. And we will bring them to life in terms of our consciousness. And we won't allow them to be forgotten. So I want to take a minute out tonight to do something that CNN and MSNBC and other establishment media vehicles and sources will never do. Let's give some respect and attention to the victims of the monsters that rule the Islamic Republic. I want to give a respect and a heartfelt moment to Armin Siddiqui, 13 years old, murdered recently by the Islamic Republic. Masoud Dekiini, 13 years old. Sina Ganbari, Mohsen Adeli, Vahid Haidari, Saru Garmani. Those are a few individuals, ladies and gentlemen. They've been murdered by the Islamic Republic. When is our establishment media going to do a gallery of their photos and tell their life stories? Can they get off track for at least 60 seconds without talking about the Russian hacking of the election and collusion with the Trump officials? No, they couldn't get off that for more than a minute now, could they, after more than a year? Those individuals that we just thought about, my friends, they represent hundreds and thousands of people. They represent millions of people who are suffering under Sharia law. Now, a full list of the murdered people, of the detainees that are suffering and being tortured right now in Iranian prisons, are not going to be found on a CNN website, in any establishment media website, but they can be found at Annie Cyrus's website, liveuptofreedom.com. Liveuptofreedom.com. That's Annie Cyrus's website. She's the producer of this show. She's the editor of Live Up to Freedom, the president and founder of Live Up to Freedom, also of AccuNews.com, human rights activist. What an honor to work beside her. What an honor to be on the front lines with her. And thank you, Annie, for listing these victims of the Islamic Republic. Everybody, go to liveuptofreedom.com and you can see what's going on there and support Annie. I just want to say that Narges Husseini, 32-year-old Iranian woman, she's one of the many that was arrested recently for removing her hijab in public. She's facing a 10-year prison sentence. She's quoted as saying, "Hijab is not my choice, and I'm not giving up my freedom anymore." 10 years in prison. And as we can well imagine, that's not all that she's suffering. That's not all the victimization that has been inflicted on her and the suffering. Recent update on her, by the way, the Islamic Republic has charged her with, quote unquote, inciting corruption and prostitution. You know, prostitution, you know, yeah, taking off the hijab, yeah, that's somehow conflated with prostitution, I get it. Where are the feminists? Chelsea Handler, where are you to defend this woman and to defend the other girls and women who are being persecuted and who have died and been murdered and who are detained and in jail for being brave enough to rip off the hijab in Iran? Whoopi Goldberg, where are you? Rosie O'Donnell, Joy Behar, Amy Schumer, Ashley Judd. I thought you were for women's rights. Oh wait, let me ask this one. Linda Sarsour, where are you? I was talking to Annie the other day, and Annie said, I don't know, where's Linda? She's so concerned for the Muslim community. But Linda Sarsour, those boys and girls that are dying in Iran, being persecuted in Iran, they're Muslims too. But I forgot, those aren't the right kind of Muslims that we're supposed to care about, right? According to Linda Sarsour, they're not the right kind of Muslim men, the right kind of Muslim women, the ones being tortured and murdered in the Muslim community in Iran. We're not supposed to care about them because they don't fit the leftist and jihadist agenda, which is what Linda Sarsour is interested in. Because Linda Sarsour and the other people I've mentioned and the media, they're on the side, enjoying gleefully, believe it or not, deriving satisfaction from the persecution of these people struggling for freedom. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that's the story, not just of Sharia supporters, but that's the story of the left that I've documented in United in Hate. It's a long and harrowing journey of malice and destruction and hatred. Because what the left is perfect at, is so good at, is worshiping at the altar of the dictum of Faust's devil, that quote unquote, everything that exists deserves to perish. That's why it was Karl Marx's favorite quote and why he referenced it so much. That's the left's story, is destruction and sacrificing human beings on the altar of their utopian ideals. I want to end this segment of my moment tonight with someone that Annie talks about quite a bit lately. We were on the phone today before my moment, and just Annie was talking to me about this 8-year-old girl and the image that was caught of her waving her hijab in the streets of Iran. An 8-year-old girl waving the hijab, risking so much. Thank you, by the way, Annie, for caring so much. But let's keep that picture up for a few seconds. I wish we could keep it up for hours and for days and for years. That 8-year-old girl, Linda Sarsour, doesn't care about you. The establishment media doesn't care about you. And neither do all these hypocritical, shameless, and shameful leftist feminists. But we care about you at the Glazov Gang. There's a lot of people behind us. You go, you brave 8-year-old girl. You have more courage and more nobility than the lowlives that I've mentioned during this moment. We love you, our hearts are with you, and we think about you every second of the day. We'll see you on the next Jamie Glazov moment. Good night.